The stomach is continuous with the rest of the digestive system, but its anatomy and histology differ considerably from other digestive organs. During development, the dorsal wall of the foregut grows faster than the ventral wall, forming an outpocketing that then rotates into its final position in the upper left quadrant of the abdomen, adjacent to the diaphragm. The stomach is divided into 5 regions: the cardia, the fundus, the body or corpus, and the antrum and pylorus at the distal end. The stomach is the most distensible and mobile part of the digestive tract and requires a rich blood supply. The short gastric arteries supply the fundus, the left and right gastric arteries supply the lesser curvature of the stomach, and the gastroepiploic arteries supply the greater curvature. As in most of the digestive tract, blood does not return directly to the vena cava, but instead passes through the liver via portal circulation. The stomach contains a number of functionally distinct cell types. The epithelium changes from the stratified squamous epithelium of the esophagus to the simple columnar epithelium of the cardia at the Z-line of the gastroesophageal junction. Alveolar cells along the lumen secrete viscous mucus and bicarbonate that protect the stomach from self-digestion. The mucosa invaginates into millions of gastric pits that contain 5 types of cells: mucous neck cells, stem cells, parietal cells, chief cells, and endocrine G cells. Parietal cells, which secrete hydrochloric acid, and chief cells, which secrete pepsinogen, are mainly found in the fundus and body of the stomach. Stem cells are found in the isthmus of gastric pits and support cell turnover every 4 to 7 days. The muscularis mucosa contains 2 layers of smooth muscle fibers, which help to expel secretions from the gastric glands into the lumen. Next, the submucosa contains fibrous connective tissue, blood and lymph vessels, and the parasympathetic nerves of Meissner's plexus. Together, the mucosa and submucosa fold into sensible ridges called rugae that allow the stomach to expand to about 1 liter. While most of the digestive tract contains circular and longitudinal muscles, the muscularis externa of the stomach contains a 3rd inner oblique layer that creates the stomach's characteristic churning motion. The middle muscle layer is circular and thickens at the pylorus to form the pyloric sphincter. Auerbach's plexus lies between the circular and longitudinal layers and contains sympathetic and parasympathetic nerve fibers that coordinate peristalsis. The serosa is continuous with the peritoneum and contains a thin layer of connective tissue lined by mesothelial cells that secrete serous fluid. The greater omentum attaches along the greater curvature and plays a critical immunological role in wound healing and defense. Parasympathetic and sympathetic nerve plexuses control the secretory and motor activity of the stomach. The activity of the stomach is also regulated by a number of hormones. Ghrelin is secreted by endocrine cells in the stomach and regulates appetite via the hypothalamus. G cells in the antrum release gastrin in response to distension. Gastrin stimulates gastric enterochromaffin-like cells to release histamine, which binds to H2 receptors on parietal cells to increase secretion of hydrochloric acid. Conversely, somatostatin, cholecystokinin, secretin, gastric inhibitory peptide, and enteroglucagon A act to slow gastric emptying. The bolus enters the stomach through the lower esophageal sphincter. The gastric phase of digestion takes about 2 to 4 hours. Chief cells secrete pepsinogen, while parietal cells secrete hydrochloric acid. Hydrochloric acid lowers the pH of the stomach to about 2 and activates pepsin, which in turn cleaves proteins into amino acids and peptides that are small enough to be absorbed. The stomach is able to absorb amino acids, ethanol, caffeine, medications such as aspirin, and some water-soluble vitamins. Parietal cells also release intrinsic factor, which facilitates absorption of vitamin B12, or cobalamin. Stomach contents are converted into chyme and mix in waves that loop around the fundus and increase intensity towards the antrum. During each wave, contraction of the outer longitudinal muscles propels chyme toward the pyloric sphincter, which relaxes to eject a small amount of chyme into the duodenum. Given the low pH, the stomach is vulnerable to a range of disorders, including GERD, gastritis, gastroparesis, and ulceration. Incidence of stomach cancer is decreasing, but is still the 4th leading cause of cancer death. Stomach cancer can present as intestinal or diffuse types. Diffuse type stomach cancer is more common in women and individuals under age 50. Hereditary diffuse gastric cancer, or HDGC, is associated with mutations in the CDH1 gene. Mutations in this gene can perturb cell differentiation and adhesion. Most stomach tumors are malignant. More than 90% are gastric adenocarcinomas and arise from mucus-producing cells in the gastric epithelium. But stomach cancers can also include gastrointestinal stromal tumors, carcinoid tumors, and lymphomas. The most common forms are well-differentiated tubular adenocarcinomas and poorly differentiated sigmoid cell carcinoma. Laminitis plastica is a rare form of diffuse adenocarcinoma, in which muscles of the stomach wall become increasingly thick and rigid. It was thought that bacteria could not survive in the stomach due to the low pH, but Helicobacter pylori is able to protect itself by penetrating the thick mucous lining of the mucosa. H. pylori is the most common chronic bacterial infection worldwide, affecting up to 90% of the population in developing countries. H. pylori infection greatly increases the risk of stomach cancer and peptic ulcers. Virulence factors within the CAG pathogenicity island allow H. pylori to bind to and enter epithelial cells. This triggers translocation of ERK and beta-catenin to the nucleus, which promotes abnormal cell proliferation. Persistent host inflammatory responses promote production of reactive oxygen species as a defense, but also causes host DNA double-stranded breaks and genomic instability. H. pylori infection can be treated using antibiotic combination therapy with a proton pump inhibitor, a macrolide, and a beta-lactam. Stomach cancer is the third most common cancer in Japan and is responsible for 120,000 cases and 40,000 deaths per year. Early detection and treatment of tumors less than 2 centimeters in diameter offers excellent prognosis. However, most patients present at a more advanced stage. Survival at 5 years is 40% when cancer has not spread to lymph nodes, but only 10% in the case of metastasis. Endoscopic screening is the most effective method of detection, but barium X-ray, abdominal CT, and transabdominal ultrasonography can also be used for diagnosis. Radiation or chemotherapy alone have limited effectiveness against stomach cancer. However, endoscopic mucosa resection for small tumors or surgical resection for larger tumors are effective in some cases. Billroth 2 gastrojejunostomy can be performed when only part of the stomach is removed, while Roux-en Y esophagejejunostomy or gastrojejunostomy is used in the case of total gastrectomy. The stomach is the body's most sophisticated endocrine organ, as well as the first line of defense against ingested pathogens. Despite the low pH of the stomach, chronic H. pylori infection is common around the world, greatly increasing the risk of stomach cancer in affected individuals. While endoscopy can be used to successfully detect and remove tumors at an early stage, stomach cancer remains a leading cause of cancer-related death around the world. Thank you very much.